Welcome to Eventful Endeavors, secrets to crafting the perfect celebration. If you're planning an event and looking for useful tips from industry experts, you're in the right place. So get ready to take some notes and we'll dive right in. This is Eventful Endeavors.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another day on Eventful Endeavors. Today, our guest, Shannon Tarrant, is the co-founder of Wedding Venue Map and a lifelong member of Central Florida wedding industry. She started off in off-site catering, visiting venues all over Orlando. She later became a wedding sales manager, guiding couples to choose the perfect venue for their big day. And seeing firsthand how much time and frustration venue searches caused, she combined her passions for helping couples with her love of supporting local businesses to help create weddingvenuemap.com. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here and chat all things venue.
We're excited to have you. Well, first, I got to start off with saying you have 20 years of experience. I mean, that kind of speaks for itself, right?
It's been a wonderful ride. I've spent my entire career in the wedding industry here, specifically in our market in Central Florida. So lots of experience in that one avenue.
Sure. Born and raised, or are you from out of state?
I'm from out of state. I moved here in college. I'm originally from the Connecticut, up in the New England area, and moved down here for college in 2001. And then I just never left. I didn't want to leave the sunshine. So,
I understand. Yeah,
I
it's
said,
cold
no
up there.
more snow for me. This is where I'm meant to be.
Sure, absolutely. So Wedding Venue Map is quite literally, but also I guess it's digital. It's a printed map that lists every venue with a defined geographical area and specifically Florida. But you guys list a little bit more info. It's not just a map.
Yeah, we've got on the print map itself, we started from a place of print, being able to give people that visual representation of where the venues were. We color code them so it's just really what's indoor, outdoor, or both, because it's a way to give a little bit of a filter on the print map. But as we know, today's couples were looking for something a little more specific, and that ability to be able to really filter like they're on Zillow. I have 100 guests and I want an outdoor ceremony, indoor reception at a barn, farm, ranch, ballroom, like pick the space. So we built the website about 8 years ago with the ability to really filter through, helping to guide today's couples on finding. It's not about finding the quantity, it's about finding exactly what they're looking for.
Meeting the needs first rather than just, here's everything that you need. It's everything you need, but nothing you don't, I guess.
Yeah, because there
Well-
were people who really wanted to have their dog at their wedding. And so
sure.
there was no capability to be able to filter by pet-friendly venues before. So just being able to give them that ability to find what it is they're specifically looking for and what's important to them.
Absolutely. I was actually at a wedding last week, and during their ceremony, they had their dog actually bring out the wedding bands. It was really cool.
I love that.
I love that kind of stuff. Yeah, felines are where it's at. Well, something I found out right away of value for all of our listeners who are listening today is you guys are a free service. I mean, what the heck? That's amazing. I wish I just got married last month, and I wish I knew about you guys. I had no idea it was totally free.
Yeah, it's really, that ability to be able to pair the couples with the spaces and vendors within the community that meet our quality standards, and the businesses do the investment on our side. And so that makes it a completely free resource for couples. So we joke and say we're like
Absolutely.
venue concierges, just being able to utilize the website. We get reached out to in the DMs all the time. We participate in about 25 wedding shows where we're having those one-on-one conversations. But it's really being able to just help guide them and narrow it down, because wedding planning is so overwhelming.
It is. It absolutely is. There's a lot of savings appeal with your services. You guys have gathered like a lot of the. I noticed on your website you kind of gather the best deals, discounts to help couples kind of plan the perfect day without necessarily breaking the bank. You've had like a entire filter feature process, which has vendors, holiday specials. Can you tell us about the special offers and filters you guys have in place?
Yeah, we know that when it comes to your wedding, there are certain categories that are maybe more important than others in terms of your prioritization, whether you're like, all I really care about is the food, or photography is the most important thing to you. And as you're deciding where to invest your money, you've got to kind of start making those choices of, I'm going to put a little bit more here, and if I could save a little bit over there. So we have a deals page on the website itself that our venue and vendor members have the ability and capacity to be able to share. Either it never expires, Fires, special offer for couples who find out about them on Wedding Venue Map, or even like a limited time offer if they're running a special for the month or things like that. So it really allows, the couple searching the ability to stretch that budget a little bit further by sometimes it's a discount, but a lot of times it's some kind of value add where they get an extra bonus if they just mention that they saw it.
Well, that's interesting. I've always been curious, in Florida, obviously we have reasonably weather as far as it's not cold like it is everywhere else, but during the summer, is summer a common booking time? Because it is so hot. Obviously, outdoor weddings might be not as appealing to young couples.
Yeah, we're actually backwards the rest of the country here in Florida, where everywhere else in the country, summer's their busiest 3 months of the year because it's cold and wet and snowy and all of that. Whereas here, it's a little bit warm. So a lot of
Sure.
those deals, discounts, and things when couples are really trying to save money on their budget, like if you're open to looking at maybe an all indoor venue or something in that June, July, August timeframe, you can save a whole lot on your wedding.
I'd imagine, yeah, but hopefully as long as it's indoors, because I mean, the big things outdoors, you have the heat, but you're just the rain. That's the thing that I always consider. I mean, we got married in December, and I was still afraid, please don't rain,
Yeah.
the whole
It
time.
can be a
So
little unpredictable with the weather in the summertime for sure, but I think it all depends on what's the most important factor when you're looking for the venue.
that's true. So learning this recently, because obviously, like I said, we were on the wedding venue hunt early last year, but also just working with Felix and Fingers, I didn't realize how many just wedding venues are in this state. I mean, wow. Walk us through the process when maybe you have like a newly engaged couple log on to weddingvenuemap.com for the first time and begin their search. What does it kind of look like?
Yeah, I think the hardest piece and part when you're looking in any market is to figure out first what it is specifically you're looking for. So if you haven't sat down as a couple and had that conversation of, what's kind of the style of venue, because you both might not agree right off the bat, or do you want to be outside or inside? So having a little bit of those conversations. And I think the most other important filter factor is the guest count. If you haven't sat down and actually made a guest list, like an list out every name, just not quick math in your head. List every name, talk to the parents who are on their list. That list might be 70, that list could be 200. And that's a huge factor when it comes to choosing a venue. So when couples hit our website, we always suggest that they make an account on the site, because when you make an account, you can then favorite things, save things, put your information in one time. And then if you want to reach out to someone, all that info blows in automatically, saves you a lot of time. So make an account so that you've got that dashboard where anything you favorited that you want to come back and look at later, you can save all of those things, and then go head over to the venue search and start filtering. So if you only know that you're having 100 guests and you want an outdoor ceremony, start to filter it down. There's hundreds of venues listed on the site. So it gives you that opportunity to start to see, maybe you've got all these factors and you filter down to the point every now and then somebody's like, I think something's broken. There's no venues listed. I'm like, you might have overfiltered. You might have got a
Sure.
little excited with how many
Right.
choices you put in. But I
Yeah.
think you can kind of start poking and seeing what does it narrow down to. And if you change that factor, what pops up. So you can head over and be able to see which venue specifically. And there is also a digital map on the website. So you can not only see which venues are appearing and look at them, but if you care about where they are in terms of like how far away it is from your home or where it is in the Central Florida region, because Central Florida is so big or
That's
vast
right. And dense.
area.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the important things you mentioned was having a meeting, obviously, previously to before just going in cold turkey. But I've always been curious about this because we had a issue with this kind of planning our wedding where we initially set out for there's probably going to be 120, could be 140, but it ended up being like 80. If you are guessing, right, and you're trying to sit down and to at least get a head count, is it good to highball? Because you can always, less as long as because at least we're only, max 140. This place will only go up to 130. Won't qualify. Is that a better way to kind of gauge the size of a wedding party, like too high versus too low?
Yeah, always. Because if you're going to actually invite, you should base it on the number of guests you're actually going to invite. Because if you're going to invite 140 people, I mean, we know they're not all going to say yes, but
Right.
you also might find 5 or 10 other people you'd have liked to have invited, but they didn't fit
Sure.
the budget. So I think it's always better to plan. Trust me, working at a venue, there were many people who would say they'd book a space that fit 125, and then they'd come back and be like, oh God, they all said yes. And I'm like, well, now what are we going to do? Because we can't, like, we're going to have to put the dancing in a different room. It changes the whole flow and vibe if we have to start shoving people into a space. So always choose a venue that meets that max guest count.
I feel like having a lot of experience, you said you worked at a wedding venue yourself. That must have really helped kind of shape a lot of the questions and filters because you were there first in experience.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I saw if couples were looking to include something like Felix and Fingers as a part of their, wedding, they want that like entertainment value and whether it's, having that dueling piano vibe that we love. If you want that, you have something like you want that live music, you almost have to start to consider that when you're choosing a venue. Because couples would come in and they'd tour and I'd ask them things like, "Oh, have you thought about a band or a DJ?" And they'd look at me like, "I don't know, we haven't talked about that." And I'm like, it's kind of an important factor because in this space, we don't have the power. You'd have to get extra generators, run the power. There's only one place in space it fits. Whereas in the ballroom down the hall, I can do anything you want. We got power built into that room for days. So I think you have to at least envision your wedding a little bit more, especially when you want some of those unique factors like some creative entertainment, like having Felix and Fingers create a whole vibe at your reception. You need the space to be able to do that.
There's definitely a lot of logistics involved. I mean, even sometimes especially with outdoor venues, whether it's historical, they might have a sound ordinance, right?
Absolutely. There's factors that you wouldn't know to think of, which I know
Right.
makes it really hard because you don't know all the questions to ask and you maybe haven't thought that far ahead. But, that's those conversations when you newly engaged, like take some time to just have fun. Like don't run out and start looking at venues tomorrow. Like take some time, start having those conversations. What have you dreamed about? Like, I mean, I know most of my friends all had a Pinterest board long before they were engaged. So they already had a vision in their head. So it's kind of like, let's have those conversations together.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit already, but you mentioned that the I think your website does have an entire blog with like 500 articles dedicated to helping them planning trips, tips, inspirational real weddings, like you said, like not a vision board, but Pinterest board,
Yeah,
was that
like
the thing? Yeah.
inspo. Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd recommend to couples do? Like, I guess we talked about it a little bit, but, having meetings, but anything else before kind of like, would you recommend looking at a planner before or after, perhaps? I don't know what the most tactical approach.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is probably the money. I think having a general idea of your budget, which no one ever knows. There's a statistical average that if you were to Google or use ChatGPT, that you can just ask how much is the average wedding in this market in this year.
Sure.
In 2025, the average Central Florida wedding was like 32,000 and change for 130 guests. At least that gives you a data point that's like, it's a statistical data point. Don't freak out. You're like, I don't have 32,000. I get it. Not everybody's going to spend that, but you
Yeah.
need to know what is the average and have all those conversations with the money people. And I think that a planner, if it works in the budget to hire a planner for full service planning, is a wonderful factor if you've got a larger budget and you really need somebody to help guide you to maximize all the choices to really stretch that budget as far as you can. But I think at a bare minimum, you should look at having somebody do that wedding day management, month of, day of, whatever it's, called. Every planner calls it something different, but
Sure.
having someone to help. And if they're going to do that piece, a lot of times you're not booking it until after you choose the venue. So you can kind of look at the venue's preferred vendor lists and say, hey, which planners already know this space really well? They know the rules here. They work here often. So you can kind of look at the after fact.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that we had to deal with was I didn't know, still don't really entirely, I guess it's a venue to venue thing, the difference between preferred and non-preferred. I think obviously preferred means they've worked with them in the past and they have like, credibility and trust, but I never understood, is it a cardinal sin to book an out non-preferred vendor at like a wedding venue? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different terminologies that float around. And if you're not in the event industry, it can get really confusing.
Sure.
So for most venues, some of them have a required list, meaning
Got it.
like a city-owned venue, they'll have a required catering list. Like you have to use these 6 caterers and you can't go off list. And in every other category, you can hire whoever you want as long as they have a business license and liability insurance. That might be the only limitation. So they might have a required list for one category and a preferred or no list on the other side. So required is required. You have to use whatever they put out there. Preferred is usually exactly what you said, that they have worked at the venue before. They've had a great experience with them. And compared to some of the others in the industry, they would love for their couples to hire them. And most venues have a pretty well-rounded preferred vendor list. So it gives you a lot of options to kind of look at, see who's the right fit, do a little bit of research. But there's a lot of venues now that are super hands-off, meaning you just book the venue and they say you can use anyone you want as long as they're licensed and insured. So I don't think it matters to go off list if it's allowed. Some venues now charge if you go off list. How would you wouldn't know all these things if you were a couple. So I don't think it's a bad thing to go off list. And you have to remember that things like Unique Entertainment, like Felix and Fingers, they might not think to put that on a list. The traditional wedding is like band or DJ, and they might not. Felix and Fingers doesn't really fall wholly in either one of those categories. It's kind of unique. So always just have the conversation with the venue to say, hey, have you ever heard of this business? Could you ask around some of the planners if you're looking to get that referral?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you guys also have your own list of vendors you've worked with, as well as venues on Wedding Venue Map as well, correct?
We do. We call them trusted vendors because every
Ooh, I like that.
vendor, we pre-vet them to make sure that they meet a similar criteria of what the venues would require. So meaning they have experience, they've got Google reviews, they're active on social media, they have a great website. We check venue references so they can't just join. They really have to meet their license and insured. So the same things that the venues are most likely going to look for and ask, we make sure that all of our vendors meet that so that our venue partners, our planner partners, we can confidently just refer couples to say, look, everybody on here meets our, list of requirements to be a quality vendor. So you can kind of confidently shop through that list to make sure that they're of a certain par of experience.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's great. It's great that you guys have the trust. I like the trusted vendors. That's a good word. We need more of that.
It's hard. I mean, there's a lot of amazing businesses here in Central Florida that we meet and we connect with, and they're like, we want to join. And we're like, well, you don't meet criteria. And many of them.
You can't sit with us.
I mean, it feels so gross sometimes that we have to do it, but we're really out to protect the couples. We're out to, because we've all seen it in the Facebook groups and things like that. People being like, oh, I hired this DJ and he canceled the week of my wedding. Like, no one on our list would ever do anything like that.
Right.
They wouldn't make those mistakes and those, because they know our reputation's on the line, their reputation. That's why we fully check through all of those things to make sure that wouldn't happen. And most of the times when we meet people and they don't meet criteria, a lot of times they just didn't know how important it was. We do a lot of educating, and they usually come back within a few months and they've elevated to check all the boxes and they're ready to go. They just,
That's funny.
Sometimes they need to know.
Sure. Educating, it can sound, I don't know. I don't mean, it's definitely sometimes people have to learn, here's how it works here. It's not to be mean. It's just kind of help them, really help you guys.
Well, and there's certain categories of vendor, like with music, you wouldn't ever think about going in somewhere, plugging into people's power and all of those things without liability insurance, right? But if you're a wedding officiant, you might be like, what do I need liability insurance for? Why would I need that? That's not a big deal. And I'm like, ooh, until you say the name wrong at the wedding, which I've seen, and it did not go well. I think that just educating the businesses and the couples why you should only be hiring vendors that carry liability insurance. It protects the couple, it protects them. Everyone's protected, and these are the quality standards that it might budget wise, you might save a little bit by going off book, but is the headache there? Are you sure they're going to show up? Things like that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And they can, are you guys accessible? For example, is there a customer, it's customer service, but can they reach out to you and ask questions about that, through the website as well?
Yeah, we find that most of the times the conversations for those questions live in the DMs on Instagram. They don't often reach out to us through the website, but we're always here to support. So a lot of times, I had a bride who had the hardest time finding a venue. She had very specific criteria. I was like, girl, you got to meet me in the middle. I can give you ones that meet this list, but they might not meet that list. We've got to prioritize some of these things. And it's just being able to have that conversation with someone who's knowledgeable. Me and my whole team know this market here in Central Florida. We know the general area. And anywhere, if you're listening to this somewhere else in the country, there's probably a local directory in your area or a planner who's been in it a long time who has all of that knowledge that you might be able to hire to help you.
Yeah.
We just do it for free.
And you had me at free. Well, the first thing I saw, I was like, oh man, that's amazing. I wish I knew. I really do. So when you're talking to these couples, are you noticing any sort of patterns when the couples are booking? For example, through website traffic or direct user feedback, is there a time that they're booking a lot? Are they getting back to what does the feedback kind of look like?
Yeah, we
and
do
also just
a lot
the time they're booking.
Yeah, we do a lot of surveys also. So we just finished our annual survey of engaged couples. And so I think there's been such a huge shift in terms of a few things. I think guest count is one of them. A lot, that kind of middle has fallen out a little bit. So meaning a lot of the weddings are a lot smaller, under 80 guests, or they're much bigger, over 150. So not that there's no one in the middle, but I think budgets have started to dictate a little bit. You either have the money to spend and you do the bigger wedding, or you're really trying to have the best wedding you can with the budget you can. So I think those people are being like, oh, I'm having a small wedding. I'm like, girl, that's like the normal at this point. So
Yeah.
I think guest count sizes has been one of them. I also think that we have a generation getting married, which I'm here for Gen Z. It's probably my favorite generation of all time, but they have grown up in the digital world of getting everything fast, quick, dirty, like everything's at their fingertip. And when they want to make a decision, they can do everything quick, which has shrunk the planning timeline. So a lot of times they are getting engaged and then waiting, not doing a whole lot, or they start to do research, they get overwhelmed, they see what it costs. They're like, oh God, I don't have the money for that. I have to take a break. Then they save up and are like, all right, we're ready to go. And all of a sudden they still want to get married in that time frame window that they
Window. Oh,
originally
it's
did, but
right.
they haven't yet booked a venue. So we see so many of the leads coming through the website of people still looking to book their venue for this year. And so if you're booking a venue within 6 to 9 months, then that means all the other vendors haven't been booked yet either. So not that there aren't plenty who are planning further out. I just think a lot of the timelines have shrunk in terms of how far out people are choosing their venue, which then means choosing everything for their wedding.
So it may go back to our point earlier, before you even do anything, get a head count and also maybe book a venue sooner than later down the line so you can give yourself more time to work with.
Yeah, even if you know, like, I mean, it's a lot of math weddings are, which is not
Mhm.
everybody's favorite subject. It's a lot
It's
of
not mine.
budgeting and dollars and dealing with like, what can we afford and what lifestyle cuts are we willing to make to maybe we don't DoorDash for the next 6 months.
Right,
And then we'll,
sure.
so that we can have the money we need for the wedding. But I think when you can lock the venue in, find the space that makes sense for you and get that contracted, even if it's for 12, 14, 18 months out, even my stepson and future daughter-in-law are engaged and they've been engaged and they've, been figuring out life. They're young, they're in their early 20s. So they're like getting settled in their house and things like that, that they're like, oh, we've got time. And I was like, so when are you thinking? Like fall 2027? And she was like, I don't know, like January. I'm like, girl, it's February. Like that's
Yeah,
11 months from now. We got to get moving if you want to get
right.
married in January. And so I think people don't think when they want a specific venue or they have a specific vision, you've got to plan a little bit further out. If nothing else than just the venue, get that one box checked so you can figure out the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big relief too, because I feel like we spent probably, man, at least a month or two just finding venues, and it's hard to get momentum when you don't even know where you're going to get married yet or have a date. So I feel like it's not gravy after that, but it's definitely a big first step in the right
Well, and
direction.
you've got to think that like it's kind of like shopping for anything like when you were if you've ever shopped for a house or tried to find an apartment, it's a process, right? You find something that you want to see and then you reach out to them and maybe they don't tour on the weekends because they're busy. And then you're like, well, I'm
Right.
gonna have to take a day off of work. And then so you think you can just take 3 days off and go tour all the venues and their schedule doesn't align with your schedule. It takes time. And so if couples on average are touring 5 to 7 spaces, that could take 2 to 3 months to get them. If you really want to see them all, if you don't find the one and you really want to see them all, it could take a few months and of just getting those appointments in. But you're right. The venue dictates the backdrop of everything and really even the rest of the availability of the budget. Because if the venue has venue, food, beverage, well, you've checked a bunch of boxes. If you've only done venue and now you have to go find catering and bar and all the other vendors, like it dictates the backdrop of the rest of it. So you kind of got to get that first box checked.
Absolutely. Well, I know you guys book a lot of you're a resource for a lot of people that are getting married, but you also, I believe you guys book venues for private events, public events. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that couples planning and people in the industry don't always realize is that the wedding industry in any city is such an incredible community. We all work together on event day to literally help people have the best day of their life that they've
Yeah,
probably had so far, the biggest party they've ever thrown. And
sure.
so through that builds long-term relationships. Like my relationship with Felix and Fingers, Nate and I became besties at an event. Like there's just, we've become this community of people who, we we work together, we play together, we do business together, we network, and it's a lot of small businesses. So we host monthly networking events in that ability for really couples, it's couples to be able to work with people who love working together, right? So that they can get those referrals from that side. It's not events specifically for the couples. We host our own networking events, and then we partner and promote all the local planning events. So there's wedding shows in the market, there's venue open houses, there's fun date nights. So we kind of help support the couples finding all of those events. We don't plan couples events ourselves. We plan business to business events to really be able to grow that community, to make it easier for the couples when they meet a DJ. That DJ can help them recommend a photographer, a florist, a caterer, a cake person. So we really kind of build and keep that community close.
The community aspect definitely helps everybody, right? And yeah, it creates camaraderie, I'd imagine, too, lifelong relationships. This kind of circles actually perfectly my next question. So what is your favorite? Is this your favorite thing, or what is your favorite thing about getting to work in this industry full time?
Yeah, I think weddings are so stressful. Like I said, it's usually the first time you've ever planned an event that big. But my favorite thing about our industry is it is really that ability for the professionals that you hire to really love what they do. Like we all love, you don't work in weddings on the event side of the world. There's so many people in photography who start in weddings and they're like, I'm done with weddings. And they go on to family or corporate or
Sure.
commercial work. You don't continue to work with weddings if you don't love. And so we have such an amazing wedding industry within our market that really does love, and they love raising the bar and pushing styles and trends forward and thinking outside the box and really just delivering on an exceptional experience for every single wedding. And my favorite part is when someone submits those real weddings and our members and planners and vendors send us the work, and you can see the culmination of everybody's work come together to have the best day ever.
That's amazing. I mean, it definitely is always authentic when you can tell someone really loves what they do, and you love. So you're in the right business in the right time. That's amazing. Shannon, thanks for being a guest on our podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure. To find you guys, I think the best way is weddingvenuemap.com. Any other places on social media you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, we're pretty active or on Instagram on Wedding Venue Map. If you're in the Central Florida area, you can always reach out to us, DM us, take a look at the site, create an account. But even for people not in the area, if the blog is such a great opportunity, we really try to be like down, dirty, direct, honest. I know how hard it is. So the honest advice that I'd give you in front of me is the same way we write our blog posts.
Awesome. Well, anyway, all my listeners, go check out weddingvenuemap.com. It's got a lot of resources. I was actually looking this up doing my prep, and I was like, I wish I knew about you guys previously. But again, Shannon, thank you so much for being a guest on our show today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Excited to help however we can.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Eventful Endeavors, Secrets to Crafting the Perfect Celebration. We hope to have left you with some actionable ideas for your own event. If you like the show, please subscribe and definitely leave us a review. We read every comment. So until next time, happy planning and see you soon on Eventful Endeavors.